Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gail Carson, your host for Women in Business, a show that celebrates women and their accomplishments as entrepreneurs or senior managers. As a woman business owner for over 5 decades, I take great pride in bringing these interviews to you. I'm also president of the SOB clubs, so if any of you are interested in joining one in your area, just contact me and let me know. Well, we have a fantastic interview for you today. Her name is Karen Post. She's an entrepreneur, an international branding authority, and an author. She works with organizations and professionals to stand out in a noisy marketplace and to best communicate their essence and message. Her creativity, expertise, and insight helps brands craft their unique stories, be relevant, and own a strong position in their category. She is the author of Brand Turnaround and Brain Tattoos and is regularly featured in international news outlets such as Fox Business, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Entrepreneur Magazine. Welcome, Karen. How are you doing today?
I could not be any better. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're glad about that because we have some important questions to ask you. I'm very much into marketing and I'm very much into branding, but people really don't know the difference between them. So, what is your definition of the difference in marketing and branding?
Well, I believe that your brand, whether it's your personal brand or a company that you're running, is the end result of everything that you do. And that marketing are all your marketing activities are the steps that you take and the needed actions to get from dream to desired results. So the marketing is the work that you need to do. The brand is the end result. It's that mental impression that your buyers and prospects and customers hold in their head about you, their opinion of you, your reputation, and your image.
Well, I mean, that certainly makes sense to me. I do have a brand. It is trademarked, the Spunky Old Broad. I'm known as Dr. Gail, SOB, Spunky Old Broad, so no one can use that. And everything I do kind of coordinates with that. As a matter of fact, I was doing somebody saw an interview yesterday with me on YouTube, and I was doing a workout segment because I'm a fitness enthusiast, and so I was doing this workout segment, but there was a time when I was just standing there next to the host, and I did a lot of hand movements and so forth, but this person said, Gail, you're the spunky old broad, and you should have your hand on your hip and just let people know that's who you are. So I guess that's true, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's a company brand. But as a small business owner, and I'm trying to compete, and I look at people like, Coca-Cola, and I look at AT&T or IBM, where do I begin with making sure my brand is the best it can be? Because I don't have those kinds of resources.
That is an excellent question. And whether you are a small entrepreneurial organization, you're a one-woman show, or a big organization, I believe that all great brands that are sustainable and that really help achieve your goals start with being very clear on what your brand essence is. And this is a homework assignment that every one of your listeners, if they've not gone through this exercise, I highly recommend it, as it will make every investment that you do more effective. It will actually create less work for you because your activities will be aligned with your essence. And what I mean by that is there's 4 pillars to a brand essence. So the first one is your purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it to make money? Is it to do good in the community? Is it to build a business that you pass on to your children? What are your goals and what drives everything you do? What are your values? So that's the purpose pillar. And you need to be able to answer those questions. And if you have a tough time, know that it can take some time to get clear on this brand essence, but you'll see how being clear on this will make everything else just really work for you. The second brand pillar is what I call your points of distinction. So, how are you different than your competition? So, while many people may provide the same service, they're a financial planner, they're a fitness coach, but every individual has stories and things about them that make them unique. You've just got to pick what those are and then figure out the very best way to reflect that in your brand. So, your point of distinction can be anything from a physical characteristic, whether you've got bright red hair, you're 10 feet tall, or it can be about your background, your story. Maybe you used to be a doctor and now you're a lawyer, or you came to your profession in some unique ways. Those things need to really be leveraged in developing your brand. The
Well,
next,
I know your brand is that you're always in red.
yeah, that's right, and I
And so
love
that's your point of distinction.
it. It sure is. And to that point, even when I do Skype interviews, my office is bright red, and people can see that. So whatever you decide your point of distinction is, you need to make sure that it resonates on all your touch points. The next pillar is your personality. So if you think about high profile celebrities, someone like Lady Gaga, maybe versus Adele, they're both singers, but they clearly have a different path that they've taken that reflect their personality. One is spontaneous and a little bizarre sometimes, where Adele is sophisticated and elegant. So everyone needs to ask themselves, what are 3 or 4 adjectives that best describe themselves? And what those adjectives are, that needs to be part of your brand essence. And again, you'll see how this will help build your brand when you start executing it. And the last pillar is the purpose of your brand. So, what do you actually do? Not in a tactical sense, but what benefit do you provide people that pay you money? So, in your case, Dr. Gale, so you do workshops and you do consulting and training and provide all this content. That's all the tactical stuff. But at the end of the day, the benefit that you bring to buyers is you make them have a full, rich, satisfying life. So identify what your promise is, and that's the 4th pillar. So once you've got all this information, these question answers, you should have a 1-page brand essence sheet. And then everything you do, you need to use that as a benchmark and ask yourself, is this investment in marketing or exposure or this event that I'm going to get involved in, is it consistent with this brand essence? And if it is, you keep on doing that kind of stuff. And if there's a disconnect, then you make adjustments.
That's fabulous. That's great tips, Karen. I mean, it's really something that's easy to follow. Purpose, points of distinction, personality, promise. I mean, that's all fabulous. So, therefore, your words of wisdom, what are the common mistakes people make in regards to their branding? So, where do they go wrong?
All right. Well, a couple things that I see very often is part of being an entrepreneur is not wanting to miss an opportunity and trying to please everybody, where that can be a deadly mistake, especially if you have limited resources and limited time, because then you are splitting your energy instead of being focused and having a lot of momentum behind you. So while it may be hard to make tough choices and to pick a lane, I think if you do pick a lane and pick a direction and not try to be everything to everybody, that's really important. Another thing that I recommend is give whatever you do time to build. So don't come out with a platform, a brand essence, give it 90 days, and suddenly if your phone's not ringing and you're not getting the new business that you want, just scrap it, because it takes time for people to understand what you're putting out there. So give it time, be consistent, and don't try to be everything to everybody. Focus, focus, focus.
Good points, good times. Now, let me ask you. We know that time is scarce. You've mentioned these entrepreneurs who, are trying to be everything to everybody. So, what are some fast, high impact things that someone can do to amp up their brand?
Well, every professional or business should have a brand toolkit that you're continuously adding brand assets to, things that are aligned with your brand essence, but that you can repurpose and use them over and over again. So, as a professional, I would start with a very basic bio, but that again reflects these questions that you've asked yourself. Then, once you create that content, then you slice and dice that and you start putting it out in social media channels. You look at all your touch points from visual communication, the type of car you drive, how you dress, how you answer your telephone, the voice message that you leave on your cell phone. Do all of these things make a connection and support your brand essence, or are they just kind of all over the place and diluting what you're trying to do?
That's very good. It's true. Most people don't think about how their phones are answered, the message they have on them, what kind of uh, image they're really portraying to most people. I mean, I have found that, most entrepreneurs are pretty frantic because they're growing their business and they're passionate. They're passionate about it. So they get involved in everything and therefore don't concentrate where they should. So how one of the ways I would know whether this thing I'm doing is working for me is whether the phone is ringing, whether people are coming in the door, if I've got a brick and mortar business, perhaps if I'm getting more orders online, if I'm doing things on through a website or something. Are there any other ways to know whether my investment in my branding is working for me?
Yes, there's a couple low cost, easy ways to assess whether your brand is working. One, when you go to a networking function or you're attending an event and one of your good friends introduces you, if they introduce you the way that you want to be introduced based on really what you provide, then you're doing a great job. If they are really far off from what you do, then you've got to ask yourself, where can I intensify my communication with my peers, my best friends, so that they understand really what it is I do. So that's a small thing. So when I used to go to functions early on in my speaking career, people would say, "This is Karen Post, and she's a motivational speaker." Well, I've never been a motivational speaker. I like to think I inspire people, and while I can motivate them, I've always been a branding, marketing, business speaker. So when I heard that, I thought, God, I'm obviously not doing a good enough job putting what I do out there. So that's something that you can do. Also, what type of opportunities do you get? So if you keep on getting referrals that are really not a fit, that probably means that these people think you are something else than you really are. So that's another red flag. So those two that I mentioned and the one that you mentioned, just is your phone ringing and are you getting new business? Those are three surefire ways to see whether what you're doing is working for you.
It's interesting you mentioned that because people have often introduced me as a motivational speaker. And like you, I am far from a motivational speaker. And I always say to them, and I guess this is the wrong way to approach it, I've always said to them, well, I am very motivating. However, and then I go
Right?
into my little thing. But, it's true. I think people don't know how to classify someone who is a speaker other than as a motivational speaker. Now, probably if you were in another environment, in other words, maybe if you were in a chamber meeting, or maybe if you were in a, like for example, if you joined a chamber, you would join as a branding and marketing strategist. So if someone were to introduce you there, they would introduce you as that person, as the branding and marketing strategist, or as you call yourself, the brand diva. However, I think in other situations, when people know that you speak or they have met you at a speaking engagement, they just automatically classify you as a motivational speaker. And do you think that circumstances as to where people meet you or how they meet you make a difference in their perception